Hello guys, Chef Anna is here and today we're making one of my favorite Ukrainian recipes, and this is cherry dumplings. We call them Varenyky in Ukraine and they are very similar to Polish pierogis, but quite not the same. We boil them and we rarely fry our Varenyky, and this is actually not a dessert, it's a full meal. But we never eat it at dinner, we usually eat it for brunch, breakfast or lunch, and I hope you will like it. It's a fun project to do with your kids or your family, and let's get into it. We'll start by making the dough, and this is just a simple unyeasted dough. We need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, so I will measure it right now. And I always have some extra flour just in case maybe I will need to add a little bit more into my dough, but for sure I will need to dust my work surface when I will be rolling and shaping dumplings to prevent everything from sticking. Now I will make a well in the center. We're using 1 large egg and 1 egg yolk in this recipe. Drop my egg in here, and this is a technique that will make sure you don't end up with any bits of shells in your dough. And the white is here, you can save it for other needs. Now we need to add 1 teaspoon of salt, and that means like a nice pinch. 1 tablespoon of regular unflavored oil, like very neutral oil. Here I'm using sunflower oil because this is the oil of Ukraine. Here I have 3/4 of a cup of lukewarm water. It needs to be just room temperature, doesn't need to be cold or hot, doesn't matter. I will pour it right here and I will start mixing the flour with the fork just to slowly incorporate everything. And then when the dough comes together, we'll start kneading on a work surface. So this is a very easy dough to make. It's very forgiving and also very versatile. So you can use it for sweet dumplings, for savory dumplings. I feel like I can start kneading with my hands. But first I will add, like I have some drops of oil left here, see? I will oil my hands to prevent the dough from sticking to my hands. By doing this, I will just gather the bits of dough together and we'll start kneading. The dough needs to be strong but not too dry and not sticky at all. This particular dumpling recipe is in my cookbook Budmo together with some other lovely dumpling recipes, so if you want you can check it out and order it from Truffle. Okay, I have this bits of dry dough, and they don't want to be incorporated in this dough. Just like with pasta, don't force it. If you have these dry bits and you feel like they don't go into your dough, just leave them. We don't want any dried pieces in our wonderful, lovely dumpling dough. I will just start kneading, and I have some flour on hand, and I will just slightly flour my surface to prevent the dough from sticking. This is perfect. This is very soft, so I will add slightly more and I will knead for 2 more minutes. It's kind of a nice workout for everybody. It needs to be smooth, but it doesn't have to be super perfect because this dough needs to rest for at least 15 minutes, better for like 20-25, to make sure the gluten is relaxed, the dough will be smooth, and the dumplings will be very, very pretty. One more important thing, I already started my water, so if you didn't do it, please start a large pot of water on a stove because we will be boiling these dumplings right away. This filling is very juicy, so we need to make sure we're either cooking them right away or freezing the dumplings, because otherwise they will just end up falling apart. Okay, I think our dough is ready. It's not perfectly smooth. but you will see once it's rested, we'll just knead it a couple more times and it will be completely smooth. Another reason for the rest in the dough, at this point the gluten is very tense, and if you will start to roll the dough, it will just shrink back together. Put it in a Ziploc or wrap it in a plastic wrap, and this will prevent the dough from forming skin, and we don't want any chunks of dry dough in our dumplings, right? So we'll just cover it, let it rest, and get back to it in like 15 to 20 minutes. While the dough is resting, it is time to make our filling. And the filling for these dumplings is very, very simple. Basically, we just need to mix this lovely cherries with some cornstarch and sugar, and this is it. So today we're using dark cherries, and they have been frozen, but they are not anymore. So never use frozen filling for your dumplings, because the dough is fresh and it's not frozen. And if the filling is frozen, you will have this temperature drop, and everything will not be cooked evenly. And usually in Ukraine for these recipes, we use dark sour cherries, which are amazing. They're tart, they're beautiful, but here I have trouble finding those. So if you have access to sour cherries, use those. If you don't, dark cherries are totally fine. And actually, I drained my cherries before I even added them here, because they released a lot of juice when they just defrosted. So please make sure you drain the juice, because we don't need the juice in our filling. And now we will add some cornstarch and sugar. And cornstarch is important to bind the juices together. So we'll make sure that the filling of our dumplings will have this thicker juice, not very liquid, so it will stay inside the dumpling. Okay, I'll put everything in here. And some sugar. I think it's about 2 tablespoons of sugar. You can add more or less, depends on your preference. I have some leftover cherries here, so I will use them for decoration. And this is 1 tablespoon of sugar, and I will add this 1 tablespoon into my dumpling cooking water. And this is an important step, because we always want to season our cooking water. And if I cook savory dumplings, I add salt. At this point, we need this little guy, and we'll melt some butter, because butter and dumplings always go together. We need to add something fatty and oily to make sure our dumplings are not sticking together. And butter for this recipe is perfect. And I will add just powdered sugar to make this butter sweet as well. You can add super fine sugar as well. It just will take some more time to melt, and with the powdered sugar, it will dissolve like a dream. To make this process faster, I didn't do it, but you can. You can cut the butter into pieces and just drop it in here. You can drop the whole piece, and it will take slightly longer, but totally fine. And this is our filling. You see, we already have some more juice released, and we don't want to put that in our dumplings. The more liquid you will add, the harder it will be to close and shape your perfect dumplings. Okay guys, our butter is melted, so I will just add the powdered sugar and mix everything together, and we are done. Maybe a tablespoon of sugar to make sure everything is nice and subtle, not too sweet, but I like this some extra sweetness. So this is done. I can put it away, and I will move my cooking water here. Our dough is very soft, it's nice, but before I will put it on this surface, I will lightly sprinkle everything with flour just to prevent it from sticking. Cut it in 2. And it's just easier to work with a smaller amount of dough. You can try rolling the whole piece. I feel like it might be challenging and you need a really large working surface. So I always cut it in 2, and the rest I will wrap in this plastic wrap, and it will wait until I'm ready. I will just flatten it a little bit, and I will use a rolling pin to roll the dough very, very thinly. And you see this dough is soft and it's very easy to roll. And I'm turning to even the edges and make sure we have a nice round shape. And I'm flipping the dough like that and rolling again. If you ever made pasta, the thickness of fettuccine is what we're looking for. We'll try to maximize our surface of the dough and cut as many pieces as possible. So you see, I keep adding flour because the dough might slightly stick and we don't want that. But we also don't want to make it dry. So just adding little by little is what we want. See, and I'm making sure that I stretch the edges like that. So the thickness of our dough is like that. You see, it's not transparent, but it's pretty thin. Maybe I will actually roll slightly more because the outer edges is something you need to pay extra attention to because it's easy to miss, and then you will end up with dumplings that are slightly thicker. Perfect. Now it's time to cut. Okay, let's see how well I can position the cutter to make sure we have enough dumplings from this piece of dough. And you can experiment with the size of the cutter. This will produce fairly small dumplings. I will place probably 2 cherries, but you can use a larger cutter and put 3 cherries. So these bits are perfectly good for another round of dumplings. So the only thing we need to do is we'll make sure that we gather the dough together. We'll knead it like this. All we need to do is to let it rest, and this piece will need like about 40 minutes. So by the time you are done with the second piece of dough and you gather all the scraps, it will be ready to roll. So I think from this piece you can make maybe 7 to 8 dumplings. So save it if you want more dumplings. But don't forget to cover it. We'll clean this surface for the second piece of dough. We'll cut all the dumpling wrappers and we'll start shaping when we have all of our dumpling wrappers ready. So I have my scraps and my second piece of dough. I'll wrap the scraps here and then I will add scraps from this part and we'll have a decent chunk of dough to work with. And I'm stretching the dough, turning the dough, everything like we did before. So with this recipe, I think you can feed 4 people easily, or 2 very hungry people. And this cutting board, I will slightly dust with flour again. So okay guys, it's time to shape our dumplings, and it's very easy. So we're placing the dumpling wrapper right here in our left hand. I'm a righty, so I'll put it like this. 2 cherries inside, and close it and seal. This is it. We have a very cute Varenyky, and I will arrange those in rows and I will cook them. And I don't put any juice inside of my dumplings because the cherries are very juicy and they will release the juice while they're cooking. And you see the dough is very soft and it's easy to seal. You don't have to use extra water or anything. And you need to get into this zone when you're making dumplings, so it's just not stressful at all. It's actually a relaxing thing to do. And you can do this activity with your kids because I feel like kids love shaping dumplings and do something very tangible. So it's a great thing to do together. This is not the only sweet dumpling recipe we have in Ukraine. We have sweet cheese filling. We can fill this with apples or berries, or even poppy seeds that are cooked in milk and honey. So the opportunities are endless. You can get creative. Okay, so guys, I'm ready to cook my half batch. The other ones are frozen. So this is my portion. Make sure your water is boiling. And also one important thing, we need a large bowl. I'm using this one. This might be too large, but you get the idea. We need a large one that can hold all of your dumplings, and it will be big enough to shake the dumplings. And another important step, we will add our melted sweetened butter right here. I'm dropping my dumplings very gently because they're tiny and beautiful and we don't want to disturb them too much. And we'll give them a gentle stir to make sure nothing is sticking to the bottom of the pan. And now we need to wait until they come back to boil, and we'll boil them for a couple more minutes until they're floating on top and slightly more plump, and that means it's ready. And we'll drop them into this melted butter, shake them together, and we are done. We have our dumplings ready. Okay guys, our dumplings are ready. They're boiling for already 3 to 4 minutes. They're plump, they're floating, ready to go here. Yay, they look so nice. And now, this is the fun part. I love it. Shake them very well and you see how beautiful they are. And I will just put them here on a platter. They're so pretty. And the last thing we want to do is to put a few cherries as a garnish. You can actually drizzle some honey on top if you want, but I feel like we have enough sweetness from the butter and powdered sugar. And always serve your sour cream with dumplings because it's delicious. This is very traditional. We love sour cream and it just goes so lovely with dumplings. So guys, I hope you like this class. I hope you will enjoy your dumplings, and please check out my other classes. I have a bunch of those on Truffle Shuffle and more are coming. And this dumpling recipe is in my cookbook, Budmo. It's right here, as well as a bunch of other Ukrainian recipes. You can buy it from Truffle Shuffle in my store. And please join me for other amazing Eastern European classes, and also let me know what you want to learn next. See you soon!